Let's be honest. If you run a small business or have a message you want to share, your best bet for getting seen on a small budget is social media. Rocky Mountain Marketing is the podcast I'm talking about this week, and Katie Brinkley, the host, is an expert in all things marketing, including social media. I'm Andy Smiley, the Friendly Podcast Guide. I'm a mom who has used podcasts to fight the boredom and loneliness of motherhood, and now I want to help you find a podcast that can do the same thing for you. It can be overwhelming to try and find a podcast you'll enjoy in the thousands of shows that are out there. That's where I come in. My episodes are short and they answer all of the questions you'll have about the podcast, so you'll know if it's a good fit for you or not. I'm here to help you find a podcast you'll love without wasting your time. Now, let's talk podcasts. Katie describes the show like this. Discover the specific marketing systems and strategies that are working right now to help small businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and coaches take the next step with social media, entrepreneurship, and marketing. Katie has interview episodes that are around 30 minutes long and solo episodes that are about 10 to 15 minutes long. The series is ongoing, with new episodes available on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Before we learn more about the vibe of the show, we're going to take a quick break to talk about creative contracts. When I started my podcast, I knew that I needed legitimate contracts and other legal documents, but I didn't know where to find them. Luckily, I found Creative Contracts. The website is easy to use, and I was able to figure out exactly what I needed for my podcast and website quickly and easily. I got a DIY legal template for my guest release contract and website terms and conditions and a privacy policy. So if you have a business and want to be legally legit, I highly recommend Creative Contracts for all of your contract and legal document needs. And you can get 15% off your order when you use my affiliate discount code FPG, or click on the link in the show notes. Now we get to hear from Katie as she talks about why she loves to interview entrepreneurs on her show. Katie, thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to join you.
I'm excited too. So before we dive into our conversation, can you introduce yourself to my listeners?
Yeah, my name is Katie Brinkley. I'm a social media strategist. I've been helping small businesses, entrepreneurs, coaches, and consultants with a social media strategy for 19 years. Yep, started back in the days of MySpace when Tom was everyone's very first social media friend. I started a podcast back in during April of 2020 when we were all given the gift of time. I've been wanting to have a podcast forever because I come from radio. I was the post-game reporter for the Denver Broncos, Colorado Rockies, Denver Nuggets, Avalanche, the Denver sports teams here. I worked at 850 KOA, and I've always loved the power of voice, the power of audio, because you can really connect with people in a whole new way and more in a very intimate way. You can get to know somebody very easily by hearing someone speak. And I've always wanted to start a podcast. And April of 2020, I started mine.
It was I don't know about the perfect time, but it was the perfect time for the situation we were in. You know, you weren't doing much else, so you might as well dive into a podcast.
Exactly.
I love that. I produced a show with KSL. I helped produce an afternoon show. So we're both radio girls. I love radio. That's why I started my podcast too. It's like podcast is all of the best parts of radio, in my opinion.
It is, but without all the commercials and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and breaking news. Breaking news was really hard for me, like emotionally. Like I would come home crying. I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So here we are. So we touched on it a little bit, but can you dive into why you wanted to start your podcast?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that it was on my, oh man, it'd be so cool to do, like my someday goal. And I went to Social Media Marketing World in March of 2020, and I was meeting all these other amazing marketers who had a podcast. I'm like, gosh, how do you have a podcast? Like, isn't it hard? Wasn't it hard to start? And because I didn't even know where to start. That was my problem, was I didn't know where. And after going there and hearing other people say, just get a microphone. Or you don't even need a microphone. You can do it through Anchor with your phone. I'm like, well, I want to do it right. But I mean, I didn't know where to start. And so, like I said, when we were all quarantined in our houses, I was like, well, I have more time now, actually, because my husband's home to help with the kids, and I could do it at night. We're not leaving to go do any activities or anything. Why not now? Why not now? And I just need to figure out what the concept of the show was going to be. So once I figured out, I'd love to talk to other entrepreneurs and hear where they're at with their journey, other marketers, and hear what their biggest tip is. I started. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to start reaching out to people on LinkedIn. People also had the gift of time. So I had a bunch of people responding saying, yeah, I'd love to join you. And the rest is history.
That's a fabulous origin story. I love that. So when you're talking to entrepreneurs or other marketers, what do you want people to get out of your podcast as you're interviewing these people?
I want them to walk away with, I never thought of that. I want them to think, I never even thought about doing that. I never even would have approached that situation this way. I didn't know that tip. So when I bring people on, I bring in the entrepreneurs to share their entrepreneur journey, because why did you become an entrepreneur? It's such a different reason for so many people. And entrepreneurs are pretty creative. And I ask all of them, like, what's one of the biggest marketing tips that you would give? Like, how have you been able to find new clients? And everyone's answer is so different. So I'd like the listeners to be like, I never thought of that idea. Or if we're talking about LinkedIn strategy, like, I never even thought about LinkedIn newsletters. I didn't even know what that was. And then they can apply that for their business, and it's going to have massive results, because so many times it is just changing one thing that really will move the needle for your business.
Definitely. And I like the idea of you are trying to help your listeners be innovative, like not just keep doing the same thing, try new things and hear new things and be like, oh, I've never thought of that, but I could easily make that work in my business, and I'm sure it would have good results.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the vibe of your show?
I'd say it's informative. But I like to get to know my my guests, but really we get into the strategies right away, because I really want to hear the story. Like for the entrepreneurs, I do one entrepreneur story a month, but then 3 episodes a month are these strategies that people can implement. Like I said, and have massive results from. So I want them to go and listen and be able to take action right after they've finished listening to the episode.
Definitely. That's interesting, because with podcasts, sometimes it can be like, oh, I now know more stuff, but what am I supposed to do with this? So It sounds like your podcast helps you take that next step and move forward in the doing.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's the goal.
Sure. Right. Okay. So I'm going to ask you what your favorite episode is, but first, can you tell me, where can people find you?
Yeah. So you can find Rocky Mountain Marketing is the name of my podcast, and it's on all the podcast players. Good Pods. I love it when people listen on Good Pods. But yeah, Rocky Mountain Marketing. If you Google it or search it on any of the podcast players, you should find it there. If you want to connect with me, you can at katiebrinkley.com.
Fabulous. I'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes so that people can go directly where they want to. And okay, so now, favorite episode or couple of episodes?
Yeah. So favorite interview episode would have to be with Judy Fox. We dive into really good LinkedIn strategies. And then in 2023, I started implementing more episodes. So I was just doing once a week for my podcast, and they were all interview based. And now on every Thursday, I do a quick cast, which is anywhere between like 5 to 10 minute long episodes, where I just go in and talk about a social media strategy or what's trending in the world of social media right now. And I really like those episodes because it's just me going in, talking quick, giving you something that you should know about in the world of social media. And I really like those quick cast episodes. They're a lot of fun to do, and they've been getting a really good response this year.
That's great. Truly, that is what I listen to. So I like to listen to at least one episode before I talk to hosts so that I can have like a feel for what the podcast is like. And that's truly the one that I listen to because I didn't have time to listen to a longer one. And I feel like truly, so I make a short podcast because I like short podcasts. So whenever someone has a shorter podcast, I'm like, oh, thank you. It just makes it so much, especially as a mom who's a little bit type A. I like to like finish things. And so when it's a short podcast, I can start and finish it usually in the same session. And it's just the best. So yes, I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Well, and that, I mean, like that's it, the reason it's between 5 and 10 minutes is that's how long it takes me to get from my kids drop off to work. And I love just being able to like get a little bit of news. So I also look for those shorter episodes because I'm like, I don't know if I have time if I want to like start and stop a podcast and pull back into where it was at, so I love those little bite-sized ones. And hopefully these quick casts are just enough of a teaser to give you a little taste of what some of the longer conversations are that happen on Rocky Mountain Marketing.
Definitely. I love that. Okay. So most of my listeners are moms or parents. So is your podcast okay for little ears?
I'd say 99.9% of them are. Yeah. There's no swearing in it. I mean, there might be something here or there, but nothing that I can think of for.
Okay. So I would say you're probably okay to listen to it in the car during school drop off, but maybe just keep an ear out just in case.
Kids will probably be pretty bored talking about marketing and business, but there shouldn't be any swearing in there.
Sure. It's safe for their ears, but they'll probably be bored.
Yeah.
You know what? I feel like that's how it is for most of my podcasts. Even the ones that I think are funny, they're not like informative. My kids still think they're boring. So yeah, that's just how it is. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't touched on yet? No,
this has been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. It's fun to connect and talk to I feel like it's really fun to talk to people who are really good at social media because that is an area I am growing in. And so I feel like it's always nice to know that at least someone's figured it out and I can grab your knowledge and hopefully run with it.
Well, thanks again for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you and your listeners.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you know someone who could use Rocky Mountain marketing in their life, will you share this episode with them? And if you need help getting legally legit, I recommend Creative Contracts and use my affiliate code FPG for 15% off. Talk to you soon.